Hi, I'm Karen Hillen. Welcome to the My HR Partner podcast. We talk about all things HR from recruitment to ending employment. If you'd like support with your HR, check out our website www.myhrp.com.au.
Hillen and welcome to another episode of the My HR Partner podcast, where we talk everything HR. And once again, I'm here with Karen Hillen. Welcome.
Thank you. How are you going today?
I'm really well, really well. So today we're talking about health and safety. So something that's very important in businesses of all sizes and something all businesses would need advice on. How important is health and safety?
It's so important, as I think people would understand. And it's important in all size businesses. And I suppose for this one, it's also important for businesses that don't employ people. Because you still need to understand health and safety for yourself, and also for your clients or your customers. So it's one of those things where it's definitely part of HR, but I think it's a little bit bigger because it is about just a business in general. So it's important to understand what your obligations are, especially for your employees, so you are keeping them safe and healthy. And people understand their rights and responsibilities as well, because that's really important when it comes to health and safety, looking after yourself, looking after the people that you work with, and even clients and customers. So
that's obviously something you help with, because where does an employer go to get this kind of information?
Yeah, so I can help with policies and procedures in relation to work health and safety. I'm not a specialist when it comes to WHS, OHS, but I do have a pretty good knowledge of it. I do policies and help people with those processes. I got a qualification in WHS as well. I don't really use it. So it depends on how complex you need the policies and procedures, what complexity you need. So if you're in an office where there are fairly low risk hazards, having a WHS general policy, having the correct forms that you need and making sure people understand their rights and responsibilities is probably enough. If you're on a big work site, builders, tradies, engineers, bigger businesses where there are a lot more hazards and risks, you would need a much more complex management system in relation to how you manage health and safety. So lots more inspections, lots more rules in relation to even things like manual handling, the rules of going onto a big building site, for instance, will be very different to a restaurant or an office in relation to what you need to know.
Sure. So there's a lot of policies and procedures, again, wrapped up with health and safety. Do you need a separate document, or do these live, again, in your HR policies and procedures manual?
Yeah, so again, it can depend on the size of the business and the industry, but the HR policy handbook I have has a general WHS policy in there that covers what you need in relation to health and safety. But there are also some other policies that are in that handbook that are health and safety related. So harassment and bullying comes under health and safety, right, because you've got to provide a safe and healthy workplace for your workers, and that includes not only their physical health but their mental health and their mental well-being as well.
Again, so much to consider in this area. Workers' compensation, something you always hear about it, workers' comp insurance. What do business owners need to know about workers' comp insurance?
Yeah, it can be a bit of a complex area. I'm not an expert on workers' comp. That's where your insurer comes in. They can provide you some really great advice and tell you what you need in relation to a workers' compensation insurance policy. And it's different in every state, just to complicate it even more. Workers' compensation and work health and safety legislation is state-based, so it can be slightly different from state to state. But generally, you need to understand what your obligations are. So, for instance, you should have workers' compensation for your employees, no doubt about that. So no matter what business structure you are, if you have employees, you have to have workers' compensation for them. It's not something you can decide, it's compulsory. So you can't sort of think, oh, well, I only have one person, they only work in an office. What's the chances of them hurting themselves? You just don't know. Apart from that, it's the law. You have to have it. There are some slight differences in relation to workers' compensation insurance in relation to yourself being an employee of your own proprietary limited company and other business structures that are far too complicated for me to go into right now. But it's just important to make sure you educate yourself so you know what your obligations are in relation to getting that insurance, and also understand it's compulsory.
Sure. Throughout this series, Karen, I think one thing just keeps coming back up, and that's to be informed and to know what you're dealing with in all these areas of business and HR, which is what you're so good at.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing. It's really about making sure you educate yourself to at least a standard where you've got a basic understanding of what you need to have in place. I'm here to give you all of the details and the extras that you need, but it's good to make sure you have your own understanding of those types of things, so you understand what your obligation is, and even how workers' compensation works in relation to how your premium gets calculated, and making sure that your category when you're getting your insurance is correct, because there are so many different categories in relation to employment when it comes to getting your insurance, and it can make a difference on what it's going to cost you for your premium.
Sure. And look, in regard to health and safety, we talked again about having documentation and having policies, procedures, and we've talked a lot in this series about HR policies and procedures handbook. But something you mentioned earlier too, that I think my HR partner would be very good at is forms. Because so many of these processes will require not just a Bible for where your rules and regulations are, but forms in order to carry out certain processes. I gather you have a lot of templates and things available for your clients?
We sure do. So that's in a number of ways. If somebody gets a HR policy handbook, there are a whole heap of forms that come with that handbook. So it's not just about the policies, as you say, it's about having the supporting forms to go with it. So when we're talking health and safety, there are forms for incident reporting. So if there's an incident in the workplace, that gets reported on a form. That can be a paper form, it can be an electronic form, it can be in a system. There are lots of different ways. Also things like hazard report forms. So if you're constantly getting your employees reporting a hazard, then it's time to do something about it.
Sure.
So again, if I use an office example, it might be there's a big tear in the carpet and people keep tripping over it. Or on a work site, it could be something that's more serious in relation to the potential for an injury or somebody having to go to hospital or be treated for a more serious injury. Not to say that falling over a tear in the carpet might not be serious. You could break your leg or you could do something like that.
For sure.
So it's just important to make sure that you've got those forms so you're getting the information you need. So if you do need to make a report to your insurer, for instance, if somebody goes on workers' comp because they have had an injury, you've got those forms in place. They've been filled out at the time when people have the relevant information. They can write it all down. They're not trying to think back a week or two when you get asked for all of that information.
Sure.
Yep.
And I guess with all of this too, it's about mitigating risk and consequences down the line if you don't have these forms or these procedures in place.
A lot of what I do with HR and with my clients is about mitigating risk. So you're definitely right. It's about making sure that you have those things in place. So there's less risk somebody will hurt themselves. There's less risk that somebody will claim unfair dismissal. There's less risk on, so many things in relation to having a business that employs people. It is about covering your risk. And like we said in another episode, it is like having an insurance policy.
Absolutely, and look, something you really do need, and it's like insurance. You think you might be able to get away without it, but you only know you need it when you need it.
Exactly, and I find that a lot. People might book in for a HR advice call with me, and they don't really know that they need HR until there's a problem that they can't deal with themselves. They need some advice. They need to talk through what they can do next. So I do find a lot people don't know they need it until there is some sort of problem that they're dealing with.
Sure, and you don't want that to be a case when it's coming to health and safety. Just
Definitely not.
Absolutely, whether that be your employees, your customers, there's so much involved. But once again, a huge amount of information there to digest, and another really important topic. Look, the more we chat, the more we realise businesses need your help and support. Where can business owners get in touch, Karen?
So the website is www.myhrp.com.au. You can book in for a call on that website and you can find out a whole heap of information, and also socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and this podcast.
Fantastic. Always great chatting. Look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks. Have a great day.